All right, chapter 23, part 3. Living world of nature, including man, is analogous to man, and it is more correct and more convenient to regard the different forms of consciousness and different divisions and strata of living nature as belonging to one organism and performing different but related functions than as separate and evolving from one another. Then the necessity disappears for all this naive theorizing on the subject of evolution. We do not regard the organs and members of the body of man as evolved one from another in a given individual, and we should not be guilty of the same error in relation to the organs and members of the body of living nature. I do not deny the law of evolution, but the application of it to the explanation of many phenomena of life is in great need of correction. Firstly, if we accept the idea of one common evolution, after all, it is necessary to remember that the types which develop slower, the remnants of evolution, may not continue to follow after and at a slow pace the same evolution, but may begin an evolution of their own, developing in many cases exactly those properties on account of which they were thrown out from basic evolution. Secondly, though we accept the law of evolution, there is no necessity to regard all existing forms as having been developed one from another, like man from the ape, for example. In such cases, it is more correct to regard them as the highest types in their own evolution. The absence of intermediate forms makes this view much more probable than that which is usually accepted, and which gives such rich material for discussions about the obligatory and inevitable perfection of all, perfection from our standpoint. The views propounded here are indeed more difficult than the usual evolutionary point of view, just as the conception of the living world as an entire organism is more difficult. But this difficulty must be surmounted. I have said already that the real world must be illogical from the usual points of view, and by no means can it be made simple and comprehensible to one and all. The theory of evolution is in need of many corrections, additions, and much development. If we consider the existing form on any given plane, it will be quite impossible to declare that all these forms evolved from the simplest forms on this plane. Some undoubtedly evolved from the lowest ones, others resulted from the process of degeneration of the higher ones, and a third developed from the remnants of some evolved form, while a fourth class resulted as a consequence of the incursion into the given plane of the properties and characteristics of some higher plane. It is certainly impossible to regard these complex forms as developed by an evolutionary process upon the given plane. The below classification will show more clearly this correlation of forms of manifestation of consciousness, or of different states of consciousness. First form, a sense of one-dimensional space in relation to our outer world. Everything transpires on a line, as it were. Sensations are not differentiated. Consciousness is immersed in itself, in its works of nutrition, digestion, and assimilation of food, etc. This is the state of the cell, the group of cells, of tissues and organs of the body, of an animal, of plants, and lower organisms. In a man, this is the instinctive mind. Second form, a sense of two-dimensional space. This is the state of the animal, that which is for us the third dimension, for it is motion. It already senses, feels, but does not think. Everything that it sees appears to it as genuinely real, emotional life and flashes of thought in a man. Third form, a sense of three-dimensional space, logical thinking, philosophical division into I and not I, dogmatic religions or dualistic spiritism, codified morality, division into spirit and matter, positivistic science, the idea of evolution, a mechanical universe, the understanding of cosmic ideas as metaphors, imperialism, historical materialism, socialism, etc., subjection of the personality to society and law, automatism, death as the extinction of the personality, intellect, and flashes of self consciousness. Fourth form, beginning of the understanding of the four-dimensional space, a new concept of time, the possibility of more prolonged self-consciousness, flashes of cosmic consciousness, the idea and sometimes the sensation of a living universe, a striving toward the wondrous, sensation of infinity, beginning of self-conscious will and moments of cosmic consciousness, possibility of personal immortality. Thus, the third form includes that man whom science studies, but the fourth form is a characteristic of the man who is beginning to pass out of the field of observation of positivism and logical understanding. The table at the end of the book is a summing up of the contents of the entire book and shows more in detail the correlation of the observed forms of consciousness in the living world and in man. Evolution or culture. The most interesting and important questions arising with regard to cosmic consciousness may be summed up as follows. 1. Is the manifestation of cosmic consciousness a problem of the distant future and of generations, i.e., must cosmic consciousness appear as the result of an evolutionary process after centuries and millenniums, and will it then become a common property or a property of the majority? 2. Can cosmic consciousness make its appearance now in contemporary man, i.e., at least as the result of a certain education and self-development, which will aid the unfolding in him of dominant forces and capabilities, i.e., as the result of a certain culture? It's a question. It seems to me that with regard to this, the following ideas are tenable. The possibility of the appearance or development of cosmic consciousness belongs to the few. But even in the case of those men in whom cosmic consciousness may appear, certain quite definite inner and outer conditions are requisite for its manifestation. A certain culture, the education of those elements congenial to cosmic consciousness, and the elimination of those hostile to it. The distinguishing signs of those men in whom cosmic consciousness is likely to manifest are not studied at all. The first of these signs is the constant or frequent sensation that the world is not at all as it appears, that what is most important in it is not at all what is considered most important. The quest of the wondrous sensed as the only real and true results from this impression of the unreality of the world and everything related thereto. High mental culture, high intellectual attainments are not necessary conditions at all. The example of many saints who were not intellectual, but who undoubtedly attained cosmic consciousness, shows that cosmic consciousness may develop in purely emotional soil, i.e., in the given case as a result of religious emotion. Cosmic consciousness is also possible of attainment through the emotion attendant upon creation in painters, musicians, and poets. Art in the highest manifestations is a path to cosmic consciousness. But equally, in all cases, the unfoldment of cosmic consciousness demands a certain culture, a correspondent life. From all the examples cited by Dr. Bucke, and all others that one might add, it would not be possible to select a single case in which cosmic consciousness unfolded in conditions of inner life adverse to it, i.e., in moments of absorption by the outer life, with its struggles, its emotions, and interests. For the manifestation of cosmic consciousness, it is necessary that the center of gravity of everything shall lie for man in the inner world, in self-consciousness, and not in the outer world at all. If we assume that Dr. Bucke himself had been surrounded by entirely different conditions than those in which he found himself at the moment of experiencing cosmic consciousness, then in all probability his illumination would not have come at all. He spent the evening reading poetry in the company of men of high intellectual and emotional development, and was returning home full of thoughts and emotions of the evening. But if instead of this he had spent the evening playing cards in the society of men whose interests were common and whose conversation was vulgar, or at a political meeting, or had he worked a night shift in a factory at a turning lathe, or written a newspaper editorial in which he himself did not believe and nobody else would believe, then we may declare with certainty that no cosmic consciousness would have appeared in him at all, for it undoubtedly demands a great freedom and concentration on the inner world. This conclusion, in regard to the necessity for special culture and definitely favorable inner and outer conditions, does not necessarily mean that cosmic consciousness is likely to manifest in every man who is put in these conditions. There are men, probably an enormous majority of contemporary humanity, in whom exists no such possibility at all, and in those who do not possess it in some sort already, it could not be created by any culture whatever, in the same way that no kind or amount of culture will make an animal speak the language of man. The possibility of the manifestation of cosmic consciousness cannot be inoculated artificially, and a man is either born with or without it. This possibility can be throttled or developed, but it cannot be created. Not all can learn to discern the real from the false, but he who can will not receive this gift of discernment free. This is a thing of great labor, a thing of great work, which demands boldness of thought and boldness of feeling. I'm going to save that. That's it.